Alright, what number do I get today? Hang! Oh, finally, after all this time. I thought it was a myth, and it's this hang, not Baxter's hang, so sorry Baxter, you gotta wait your turn even longer. The stars had magically aligned, and somehow everyone was free today, but it was more than just luck. You owed it all to Miranda's determination. She set things up over several phone calls to find the perfect window to hit the beach. You couldn't wait to meet up with... Oh. Yes. Alright, Baxter, I'll invite you. Coordinating schedules had been especially rough lately, but you didn't let that stop you from organizing your grand plan. You wanted your new friend to be included in all the fun. After a bit of messaging with the others, you had brought up the possibility of adding Baxter to the mix. No one objected to your request, so Terry swiftly put the phone number she snagged at the beginning of the summer to good use. It finally paid off. Baxter had been flattered to be thought of that early in the planning stage. Funnily enough, he'd been the easiest one to account for, despite being far and away the newest guy on the block. Baxter was able to rearrange his schedule to whatever everyone else needed, and you and Terry relayed the remaining details to Cove and Miranda later. Your hopes were high. Almost everyone knew each other to varying degrees, but this would be Miranda and Baxter's first time meeting. Okay. And yet, you weren't that worried. Deep down, you had a pretty good feeling that they'd get along once they got to spend a little time together. That was where things stood. Yeah, we'll meet you there. We'll meet you there, Mr. Deep Voice. Cove is already here with me. Nodding along to Cove's story, you ran through the mental checklist in the back of your mind. Baxter didn't have everyone's number, so keeping him updated on any changes was the starred, circled, most important thing you had to keep track of. If anything came up, you would have to run down the street and tell him, but there were still a number of things that you needed to get done, hopefully, before that. And you are just hanging out without your shirt on, all casual-like, in my bedroom. That's a very dangerous pastime, sir. Cove sat on your windowsill and kicked one of his legs into the air idly. He already had a swimsuit on, and his towel was bundled under his arm in a misshapen ball. He'd shown up earlier that morning with a surprising amount of enthusiasm. He was chatting as you caught up to his preparation.
But seriously, I couldn't find my swimsuit this morning. I looked everywhere. It had disappeared. I had no idea what I was gonna do.
Somehow, just like your old sand pail. What happened to all your other swimsuits? I know that's not your only one. Cove looked away and shrugged.
I might have some laundry to do. Anyways, I don't know why it was in the bathroom when I never put it there.
He gave a small smile and readjusted the towel in his arms. You now could see that it had been folded at some point, but then rolled up and carried without much care.
I'm so glad.
But I'm just glad I found it. It would have been crappy to lose my favorite trunks.
It was nice to see Cove so happy and comfortable in what he was wearing. You walked over to your dresser and mused about how you had picked out your own swimsuit. Your height had complicated your swimsuit shopping. Not many swimsuits were well-fitting on someone who's petite. And then for the shape of your body. Oh no, I knew this day would come. I'm 17, 18, right? So, I was looking pretty great at that time. I had curves, alright? And, not delicate for sure. I was running. Let's see, back then I was doing dance, running, and walking. So I would have had, I wasn't like built, but I did have a little muscle definition. Your build was toned and firm, with muscles that were there, though slight in size. You had gained more muscle in recent years. It was clear when compared to how you were when you were younger.
Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm just thinking about my body changes. I'm good. Oh yeah, I was thinking about some things.
What things?
Literally just like, just a bod, you know, what do you think about it? Just myself and my body, really. His eyebrow rose at your admission of self-reflection.
And what do you think?
What did you think of who you were? You considered your identity further. Yep, always felt sure. Being called her was right for you. And yes, we'll just go there. Look, I don't even have to like look this one up. I'm pretty sure double D counts as well endowed. Your boobs were a large part of your frame, alright? I always wish they were smaller. So, I'll do that one, that's the closest. People had a lot of their identity wrapped up in their physical form. It shaped their self-image. I wasn't confident. But at 17, 18, I felt pretty good. I mean, I've never been, like, completely content. Because, I mean, I would like to be taller, obviously, and other things. But, you know what? Comfortable. Your body was you, and it was a good one that you felt content in. I think my teens were the happiest I felt with my body in general, probably. Teens to early 20s, it was a good time. You used to not feel as good when you were younger, but you had since grown into your body. You felt more at home now and less uncomfortable. Cove's just been staring at me while I've been staring into the void. He focused on Cove again. He smiled at you and tilted his head, a question still in his eyes. He was waiting for you to come to an answer, but before you could, you had something to say to him. These are both the same question. One's a little more pointed. Let's do the neutral one. What do you think about me? About how I look, I mean. Cove smirked a little, his eyes taking you in easily. I know. I'm not proud, but for real, though.
Fishing for compliments, Molly? You look great. Everyone knows that, including you, by the way. Unless that's changed.
So what if I wanted you to compliment me? You still should. Can I blush and laugh at the same time? I'll blush. You felt your cheeks heat up and looked away. Cove shook his head. His hand went up to try to unsubtly cover his smile.
I was kinda worried you were so in your own head because something was wrong. Guess not. I'm glad.
Hey.
Cove gave a bent smile, pointing to your arms. Thanks, I think.
You're looking particularly toned today. It's...
He answered not with words, but a solid okay sign with both hands and the same cheeky smile. Cove suddenly flushed when he realized how boldly he complimented you. He stood by it, even if he was a little red. I appreciate you standing by it. You were a little taken aback. That came out of nowhere. You glanced at yourself. This? This is what, for real? This is what you like? Alright, you crazy. You like that?
yeah.
Yeah, you have some very good arms yourself. Cove ducked his head and started to rub his left arm. It seemed he was much more prepared to rain praise on you than to receive it himself. He barely could respond.
Thanks. You too. Oh, I already said that, huh? Thanks.
Good talk. Finally, you felt that was enough of that topic for one day. You went back to your original goal before you got sidetracked. You needed to pick what you wanted to wear to the beach. I was into the two-piece bikini scene, so we'll do that. While you dug around in your drawers, you tried to think if there was anything else you were missing. Let's see. Not sunglasses. Yeah, probably a regular shirt. With that taken care of, you held your outfit together and looked to Cove. He was tapping his toes on the side of the wall as he waited. You vaguely wondered if he thought that was a comfortable place to sit. You hoped so, given how long he'd perched on it. Regardless, it was time for him to go. You weren't going to put on your beachwear with him just chilling there. We're not that close yet. I need to change. Cove smiled, content with being kicked out.
Alright.
Cove lowered himself off the window and strolled past you to get to the door. He lightly brushed his fingers against your cheek when he passed by. Yeah?
Goodbye.
I'll see you out front.
Okay. I would have just like shut Molly.exe shuts down. Caresses my cheek. Hello? When you were alone, you got undressed and put your swimwear on. You also checked your beach bag for the final time, and it seemed like you hadn't forgotten anything. You left your room and hurried down the stairs, ready to meet Cove. You made sure to lock your front door and walked outside. Cove stood in the road, looking down and scuffing his feet on the asphalt. When you shut your heavy door, he looked up at you and smiled. Want to check on Baxter? Cove's fairly neutral attitude on the topic of Baxter didn't escape your notice. I'm sorry. Look, we can be friends. Come on, man. We can be friends. He tended to get uncomfortable whenever Baxter surprised or flustered him, but since things were pre-planned and for an event favorable to Cove, he didn't seem bothered. Cool. Let's go.
Sure.
Sure. You do that. The two of you walked unhurried up the street. You hopped up onto the doorstep and rang the bell. A few seconds passed, and you shifted your weight on your feet while you waited. But Baxter didn't answer. The pause extended until things reached the point where you felt awkward hovering in front of his shut-up home. You spun towards Cove, and he returned your nervous stare with a tight-lipped smile. At least you could take solace in the fact that the mild misery had company. There were only a couple options to pick from. You could either ring the doorbell again, or you could go back to standing in the street where you felt less like an unwanted salesperson. Or you could text or call. You reached for the bell, but a sudden noise through the wood made you pause. Finally, the door cracked open and Baxter peeked through. He then swung the door the rest of the way out. You good?
Good afternoon.
I can't thank you both enough for waiting. Hi.
Why aren't you in a swimsuit? Do I even want to ask what you were doing inside? I'll just do the hey. Hey. Baxter leaned against the frame and his attention flittered between you and Cove. With a flick of your wrist, you added a wave. We're here to pick you up if you're ready.
Absolutely.
I am, and I couldn't have asked for better escorts.
The atmosphere had become far more laid back. Cove was the one to move things forward.
So I was thinking, we could get settled at the beach now, and Terry and Miranda can catch up with us there.
I can do that.
I second that idea. While this neighborhood is charming, I think a change in scenery would be preferable.
You moved in the direction of the beach while Cove paused to shoot off a quick update. He made sure to let the others know exactly where to find you. I don't mind. He flashed a thumbs up as soon as the message was sent, and with that, the three of you strolled down the street. The path you walked was as natural as breathing for you and Cove. For Baxter, it was a brand new experience. Though you might not have been able to tell. He walked straight on, with certainty in his steps that was on par with the locals. The ocean stretched as far as the eye could see. It was a perfect day. Clear sky, rolling waves, and an inviting breeze coming across the water to combat the balmy heat. Cove threw his towel down and smoothed out the corners while you settled on a spot for your own things nearby. Baxter, meanwhile, hesitated, merely watching what you two had done. Before you could say anything, Baxter moved forward and picked a small stretch of beach close to yours for his own things. He meticulously laid his pure black towel out over the warm white sand. Black towel, eh? Bold choice. Turning away, you tried to hold back and hide your laughter. It was just so convenient that even here, his black and white color scheme was inescapable. I wish he had gone with white for the towel, though. It's gonna be hot on the beach. Shaking off the snickers, you were glad Baxter had the forethought to bring a towel. He shouldn't need it to dry off, but at least he had a comfortable barrier between himself and the ground. Baxter stared right ahead, hypnotized by the moving water, and carefully lowered himself onto the towel. For you, your family, and your neighbors, the ocean was an old and well-loved friend. But witnessing the wonder dancing through Baxter's eyes reminded you just how vast and awe-inspiring the sight truly was when it was right in front of you. You glanced at Cove and realized that he was taken in by that side of Baxter as well. This beach was a special place for the people of Sunset Bird, and now it was working its magic on Baxter. Cove seemed flattered by the awe and unspoken approval written all over Baxter's face. Like, aw, he loves the ocean, hooray. The sea meant more to him than even the others living there. To appreciate it was to accept him. He hugged his knees to his chest.
So?
What did you want to do?
When you didn't answer, Baxter tore his focus away from the water. He was pleasantly surprised to find out that Cove had directed that question to him instead.
Oh, I've been running on the assumption that you all had something in mind. Whatever it is works for me.
We don't.
Nope, no ideas.
Honestly.
Then, truthfully, I'd prefer to stay as dry as possible. Taking a stroll, or simply remaining here where we are, enjoying the scenic view would make a perfect afternoon in my book. But my want shouldn't interfere with yours. I won't stop anyone from having fun in the water. We're at the shore and I'm not heartless.
Cove nodded understandingly. The odds were low that Baxter was going to go for a dip in jeans and a shirt that looked too delicate for the washing machine, but that was fine. True. I didn't want to ask where his swimsuit is, because some people don't like to go swimming, and that's totally fine. Yeah, personally, I want to go swimming.
Sounds good.
Me too.
Cool. Stretching your arms high above your head, you felt the sunshine on your fingertips. Baxter never moved his eyes off of you.
I hope the water is exactly to your liking.
Cove kicked his heel, sending some grains of sand that had gotten on his towel sailing. He had done well starting the conversation, but now he was unsure of how to keep it going. Luckily, it didn't take long until you heard shouts. You turned your head to see both Miranda and Terry running straight for you. Miranda was faster, making leaps and bounds across the sand. Terry followed in her wake, laughing with her towel clutched around her shoulders and flowing like a cape. Miranda started making her jumps more theatric and more precarious as she got closer. Cove waved them on with a bright grin. I would wave too. Terry tried to wave with both hands while running, one for you and Cove, but she was distracted and lost her balance, nearly falling, laughing all the while. Hey, you guys look great! The two officially arrived at your little group setup, looking completely ready for an ocean adventure. They were already in their swimwear and were raring to go. Awkwardly, Cove pointed in Baxter's direction. He remembered that Miranda hadn't actually seen him before.
That's Baxter.
The strange young man's presence nearby suddenly made a lot more sense to her. Miranda shyly waved with a cheerful smile.
Hi.
Nice to meet you.
Of course.
Likewise.
Baxter offered her a handshake, and Miranda grew confused at his formal gesture, checking the reactions of her friends on if she was the weird one for thinking this was weird. That only made his smile widen.
I can assure you that I'm harmless.
You knew Miranda well enough to recognize the worry she was trying to hide behind a more collected front. It was easy to imagine that she might have felt somewhat intimidated. Baxter had an air of maturity about himself, while Miranda was a little bit childish and shy in comparison. Hesitantly, she clasped his hand and gave him a proper shake. Thanks for meeting us here today.
My pleasure.
Baxter placed his other hand gently on the back of hers while he spoke. They both let go, and Terry sprung forward.
Hey, buddies.
Hello, hello! She teasingly punched Baxter's upper arm.
Nice to see you too.
Terry had already made her dramatic introduction to him at the start of summer, so she was excited to skip right to the good part, hanging out.
The B-Man is actually here! I can't believe how long it took for everyone to get together.
I know, I'm sorry, the number generator was not in our favor. Hi, Cove and Molly, too.
Hey, catch us up! Did we miss anything important?
I'll recap her. Your moms were the same as ever for the most part, although they were definitely still adjusting to you being an adult now. Liz had asked you to take pictures of her latest makeup look the other day. There was nothing too dramatic going on right now. Terry nodded along and mentioned a couple things about her own parents. Miranda brought up her family and shared some of the wild things her older brother had done. Terry then started talking about her morning and how she'd almost overslept since she had stayed up too late last night. She bounced on her feet as she spoke.
But don't worry about me being tired today. You know I ran on less back during school.
Miranda filled in the group about her morning. Apparently, everything had gone smoothly. She'd met up with Terry on the way here, and you knew the rest. Cove offered a suggestion to the gang.
Hey, why don't we take this out to the water?
Okay. Oh yeah, definitely. You felt pleased that Cove remembered what you wanted to do. Sometimes he could be thoughtful like that.
You mean like all the time?
Terry threw her stuff down on the sand and started running for the waves. Miranda was more careful setting down her things and waited for you and Cove. Cove tilted his shoulder to gesture over to the ocean.
All right.
I've been looking forward to this.
4 of you made your way down to the shoreline together. Miranda cartwheeled and Terry clapped. Baxter watched. Cove swam out the furthest, while Terry instigated a splash fight. It was near enough that Baxter could comment on it. There was rarely a quiet moment when someone wasn't laughing. Hours passed, and the group had moved between different activities, some low-key and some more exhaustive. For you, it was break time. Baxter agreed. You sat on your towel, sipping at some water, and he rested on his. Your friends were hard at work, burying Terry's full body under a pile. Miranda used her arms to force up sand around Terry's sides. Cove worked on covering Terry's feet. You took another drink and glanced over at Baxter. He was staring at the water, but there was an entirely different feeling radiating from him. Rather than pure awe, there was a level of discomfort marring Baxter's expression. You wondered what was bothering him. Suddenly, he turned towards you as if he could feel your curiosity prodding at him. He surprised you with a kind smile.
To be honest,
I've never swam in the ocean before.
He let that hang there and absent-mindedly brushed some sand off his thigh. After spending so much of your life in Sunset Bird, you honestly struggled to believe that.
I've been on boats, of course, but I can't imagine being fully immersed in the ocean. It's a bit, well, frightening. It seems endlessly deep and unpredictable, with powerful waves and rapid currents. And there are creatures lurking in there. Some of them are larger than me. It's unfathomable. You don't play with something like that.
it's...
If I enter that water, I'll never return from it. The ocean will swallow me whole. That's what I think.
His smile strained under the weight of his growing nervousness. Baxter had always carried himself so calmly. This genuine vulnerability left you speechless. So you're worried, but you also kind of want to swim in it, don't you? And then you heard Miranda screech. Your attention immediately switched over to your friends. You registered that Terry had gotten impatient and shifted her legs. The walls Miranda had been meticulously building collapsed into a wet heap of sand. She surveyed the damage critically. We're gonna have to start over on that part. Do you want to give up on this now?
No way! The burial must continue! I'll try not to move anymore.
Okay. If you're sure, I'll try to fix this. Miranda started to rebury her, and Terry shot her a thumbs up. She realized too late that moving her arm was a bad idea. More of the sand on her crumbled, and Miranda put her head in her hands.
Don't worry about it.
I've got that part.
Miranda nodded at him with appreciation. They got back to work, redoubling their efforts to pile sand over the limbs of their friend. Baxter caught your eye, and you both snickered at the interruption. As it grew quiet again, you offered Baxter some words. I'm gonna save the ocean thing for Baxter's route, I think. How about we go help them before there's another sand disaster? Standing up, you curled your toes in the toasty sand. If you don't like the water, then that's fine with me. You don't need to force yourself to do anything, especially when there's already something fun we can do on land anyways. If he had any remaining doubts or discomfort, Baxter didn't show it. He took your invitation and rose to his feet.
Lovely.
Thank you. That sounds lovely.
You followed him over to the girls in Cove. Miranda nodded at you both with appreciation, and the four of you did your best to finish the job. You all worked out a system of using just enough wet sand to help hold the rest together. With 4 people, it didn't take long for Terry to be entombed. Terry grinned massively, and Miranda offered high fives. The pile was officially done. Take a picture quick.
Hell yeah!
Resembling the Kool-Aid Man, she kicked herself out of the ground with gusto. Sand went flying in all directions, and a Terry-shaped imprint was left behind. Miranda yelled again, and Cove chuckled. There probably wasn't a better way to get out of it.
Man, I'm ready to wash this off.
Terry looked down at herself and laughed. She tried brushing the wet, mushy sand off, but most of it stubbornly clung on. She only succeeded in moving around where it was on her. Terry's grin tilted when her gaze landed on Baxter. She shrugged awkwardly.
We're cool.
I'm not expecting all of us to jump in. Thank you. Don't worry about me. It was never my intention to swim. Please don't let that stop your fun.
Wait, what?
Well,
It's simply not my preference.
Terry squinted and thoroughly scrutinized him. She wasn't satisfied with his answer. Alright, Terry's gonna bully you if I won't.
Uh-huh.
I think I get it. You're new here and you don't know what to do in the Great White Sea. Just hold on to my back and I'll take you out into the water with me. Your place is right up the street. It's not too late to change. Ah, while I greatly appreciate the gesture, I must decline.
Are you sure? I can totally handle it. I'm a lifeguard in training. Terry, I thought you hadn't signed up yet.
Shh, I will, and that's what counts.
thank you.
Yes, thank you. Aww, but it's just so sad to leave you out. You know, me and Cove only became friends in the first place because we're beach people. You can be a beach man too, B-man.
Beach man, B-man. Her crestfallen gaze slid to Cove. He nodded understandingly. Surprisingly, Baxter chuckled.
I get it.
I understand where you're coming from, and I'm sorry for any upset I might have caused. But please, trust me on this one. I'm perfectly fine. I may not be much of a seafaring man, but I have gone swimming before. Pools and lakes are no trouble to me. In fact, I would guess I've done certain water-based activities that some of you might be too nervous to try.
Cove's like, is that a challenge? Cove's lips pursed. He raised his chin and stared, not so much threatened by Baxter's accusation, but insulted he would even make such a challenge.
Seriously?
Like what? I surf. I have a dad whose entire business is about water-based activities. I went on a jet ski when I was 8. What could you have done?
He notably didn't mention the results of his young jet skiing adventure, and Baxter didn't show any hint of doubt about Cove's accomplishments. Baxter straightforwardly answered the question instead.
Skinny dipping.
Oh, brother.
Cove's jaw dropped. The suggestion left him scandalized, and the reddest you'd ever seen him. That doesn't count.
So,
You haven't done it then. You might want to, especially since you already enjoy the water. It is rather liberating.
Baxter was making an honest recommendation. You could tell it wasn't his intention to come across mocking Cove's lack of experience there, however, Cove was still completely thrown. That suggestion of Baxter's was even worse than implying he was more confident in the water than Cove. The silent beat was broken by Miranda's embarrassed attempt to stifle her giggles with the palm of her hand. Her cheeks had grown flushed, and you knew it would be a while until she was confident enough to even dare to make eye contact with Baxter again. Terry, meanwhile, gave Baxter an impressed nod and then instantly lost all composure. She fell into a boisterous fit of laughter, holding tightly onto her own stomach. Personally, it was TMI. Yep, personally, it was TMI. Grimacing, your nose wrinkled at that suggestion. Skinny dipping was the last thing you planned to do, and knowing Baxter's history with it was doubly unwanted.
Is that fine?
Did I say something wrong?
The playful note in his voice told you everything you needed to know. Baxter was fully aware and enjoying the bit of chaos he unleashed on the group. You exhaled deeply and did not comment. No one else added anything on the topic of Baxter's skinny dipping adventures either. Good, moving swiftly on. It was back to the drawing board on what to do next. After a while, the gang mutually decided it would be best to go do something that was not water-based. The 5 of you continued to have a good time. You went on a shell hunt. Miranda managed to find the biggest, while you found the most colorful. Cove caught a tiny crab. You did a bit of everything. There were impromptu games to just soaking up each other's company. However, after a while, you all had run out of water, drinkable water anyway. It was decided that you'd head to Cove's house or yours. Things were gathered and you started to cheerfully walk up the road. What next?
I don't have anywhere to go, so it could be whatever.
Yeah?
Same. I guess we can keep hanging out.
Terry snorted and readjusted her grip on her things. Don't sound too sure there, Cove. By this point, you could see your house. It hadn't taken you long to make the trip. The conversation continued with everyone throwing out suggestions. Are people hungry? She looked from face to face in inspection. Cove and Miranda shrugged in concert. Baxter didn't react. No one was overtly opposed to it. However, you weren't really starving. It wasn't quite a mealtime.
We could get dessert.
Miranda put a finger to her lip in thought. With a smile, her voice became more confident.
Yeah, that would be fun.
Terry considered it and then shot Miranda a thumbs up.
Sure.
Sounds great to me.
I can definitely go for that.
I think that's a good idea. When the topic of dessert was raised, Baxter hummed with interest. This caught everyone's attention as nothing else had drawn a comment from him in a while.
What do you think?
If that is the next event, would we be willing to try ice cream and similar frozen treats? I like the sound of that.
Why?
Baxter shook his head ruefully.
Truthfully, the one thing I have wanted to do while I am here is to see an ice cream truck in person. My hometown doesn't have one, and neither is there one around my campus. It is a summer tradition that I have missed.
You and Cove stared at him blank-faced. Miranda pressed her lips together and shot a glance at Terry. Her expression was like a stone.
That was a dramatic drop in mood. Am I being gauchely touristy right now?
He was entirely off in the guess. Baxter could only watch helplessly as the people around him remained unusually sober. Cove voiced the consensus of the locals.
I've never been to an ice cream truck either.
What?
Are you serious?
Miranda nodded her head, and Baxter's composure shifted into incredulity.
Me neither.
Nope.
Same. Yep, me too. There isn't an ice cream truck in Sunset Bird.
That's...
We have an ice cream stand on the shopping street. It's not exactly the same, but that's how it is.
Oh, and sometimes we get ice cream at the park during big events. That was from a cardboard box, though. Still not a truck.
I've only gone to ice cream parlors and got ice cream from the freezer part of grocery stores.
Me too.
Uh-huh. But sometimes my family makes it homemade.
Baxter grinned, for once on the same ground as his new companions.
I've normally only eaten at restaurants after a meal. I never realized that ice cream trucks were so rare.
Unexpectedly, Cove was the first to agree with Baxter. He narrowed his eyes and spoke firmly.
Then yeah, let's find a truck. I've got to do it at least one time.
Yeah!
Baxter's onto something. We've all been missing out. Terry raised a fist into the air in a dramatic pose. There has to be an ice cream truck somewhere in California. You would think. That's good with me. Baxter brightened more, seeing his suggestion receive support. Miranda smiled at him. You could only guess at her first impression of Baxter, but given how she had relaxed around him, you imagined he was growing on her. He wasn't as exceedingly self-assured as he came across at first blush, but it was nicer when Baxter was confident.
Let's do it!
That sounds fun. Let's look it up.
Miranda reached into her bag and dug around for her phone. She pulled out a hair scrunchie, a small notepad with unicorns, and a bundle of chunky keychains. Her phone remained elusive.
Just give me a sec.
The rest of the group's mouths pulled into tentative, hopeful grins. There was an air of slight disbelief. Cove mulled it over while tapping his foot.
Wherever it is, we're gonna have to drive to get there.
I think so. None are in town, right? And everywhere else is far away.
She finally retrieved her phone and started to search on her Maps app. She tapped her screen with a frown.
I'm not sure.
It's already late afternoon, too. I wonder if ice cream trucks are even still going around.
We have to believe. It's too soon to give up. Cove nodded, patting at his pockets. They were tellingly empty.
I'll get my keys.
It's doable.
No need, allow me. I asked to do this, it's only fair that I be the one to cover transportation. Besides, it's a rental. We may as well make the most of it while I have it. Alright.
Cove raised his shoulders in a bewildered shrug. Baxter ran his fingers through his hair to swipe his bangs, and they fell exactly back into place after. Oh my.
I will return in only a moment.
Terry shot him a thumbs up, and Miranda mumbled absent-mindedly, focused on her task. Baxter flipped towards his condo and headed off, his strides long and determined.
Oh,
Cove raised his voice at Baxter's back.
We'll put our stuff away while you're off doing that.
Baxter peered over his shoulder and answered.
Good.
Baxter was soon out of sight, and Cove had gathered up all his things into a sturdy hold. He gestured with his chin to his house.
We can use my place for storage.
You were on board with that. You shifted your things around so they'd be more comfortable to move. Thanks, Cove. You appreciated his offer for the simple truth that his dad would care way less about the mess than your mom's. That's true. Cove led the group to file into the Holden household. Miranda brought up the rear, stumbling behind Terry. She was being led by the arm while still keeping her eyes on her phone. Sandy towels were dropped in a heap on the living room, one after the other. No one wasted even a second with organization, taking cues from Cove's rush.
I need a minute. Gonna grab a shirt.
He darted down the hall, his steps loud on the hard floor. You straightened out your shirt, suddenly conscious of what was on your own body after Cove brought up the topic. Nice. Cove returned, now decent in his Orca t-shirt. Terry hooked her arm around Miranda's and used her other hand to wave towards the door. When you got out, you could see Baxter's shiny black vehicle idling on the street and awaiting its passengers. Cove went for a seat in the back without consideration. He was not going to be in the front. But you would. I feel bad because I'll be splitting up Miranda and Terry, but I feel like Terry would want to sit in the front anyway, right? You followed Cove and took the left seat. Terry claimed shotgun, and Miranda squeezed past Cove into the middle. Figures.
Hello.
Hello. Of course you have light-colored seats in your black car. Of course.
Welcome to my car, friends. Do we know where we're going?
Miranda nodded slightly and leaned forward to hold her phone up. Her persistence had bared fruit.
There are some suburbs surrounding the city where ice cream trucks have routes during the summer. I can't tell exactly where they're gonna be when we get there, though.
That is more than enough.
The two conferred on directions until Baxter decided to route towards a random neighborhood, or route, I guess, towards a random neighborhood street in the area as a starting point. He took off, the car gliding across the road with minimum vibration affecting the cabin. It was the smoothest ride you'd ever had in a vehicle. In the heat of the excitement, Terry punched the music on. It connected to Baxter's song list, and your eardrums were struck by the pounding of a regular drum. A guitar riff shrieked out after. It was on a punk metal track. He's got good taste in music. Turn it up! Terry snorted and obliged your request. You both jammed out as the speaker system surrounded you in the vibrations of sound. As the drive continued, the music brought an almost surreal feel to the trip. The shredding guitars and shouted lyrics were a weird contrast to your goal of finding an ice cream truck. It inserted the humorous mental picture of an ice cream truck playing screaming punk metal instead of twinkling tunes to summon children for icy treats. Zipping through the length of Sunset Bird in no time, you flew past the now leaving sign. Past that, the car zoomed down the open road while Miranda attempted to dig up more details on the elusive ice cream trucks.
Do they have socials? Maybe someone tagged them in a pic or they're live tweeting.
Huh? Why would an ice cream truck be on Twitter? And I can't even find out their hours for sure.
I believe in you.
Minutes added up, as did the miles. The city got closer, but the shadows closed in faster. The sun glinted from behind distant skyscrapers. Calling it late afternoon was being generous. It was evening. Unspoken tension began to form. The odds of an ice cream truck being active dropped with every passing second, but Miranda continued the search and Baxter kept driving. As planned, he turned off the highway and followed the streets into the heart of the suburbs. He rolled through neighborhoods aimlessly until...
Yes!
Miranda beamed and shoved her phone up to the front.
You found one?
There's a truck that's still open and nearby. It was on Facebook. I think if we go down their route, we'll find it at some point.
No way.
Amazing.
Never heard of that.
Yeah, who uses Facebook?
People who want ice cream. Let's go.
Please direct me. I can't read the post.
First, take a left at this next stop sign.
Baxter clicked off the music to focus on Miranda's words. He also opened his window. Terry and Co. followed Baxter's lead, but Terry could get further and pushed her head out the window as far as the seatbelt would let her, hands cupped around her ears. Cove would lean further out when he saw anything even kind of truck-shaped. Everyone had their ears and eyes wide open for any signs. If an ice cream truck was somewhere in the area, they weren't going to miss it. Yep. You pushed off the floor of the car and then twisted into position with your head going straight through the opening. At such a slow pace, the wind coming through whipped at your hair gently, pleasantly. Much less nicely, a fine dust blew in from the street. You squinted against the dirt in the sun. It had sunk low enough to be perpendicular with your eye line. Still no truck to be seen. The houses you passed seemed older, probably built decades ago. Some had colorful lawn decorations and well-kept flower gardens. Others were nothing but green grass. Conversation stopped entirely once Miranda had told Baxter all he needed to know. He drove through the residential streets like a hunter on the prowl. The target could have been anywhere. He turned a corner. Faint laughter filtered in through the windows. You heard birds chirping and rustling leaves. But in that moment, none of that mattered. That's not what you needed. Fingers were crossed and breaths were held. Baxter turned yet again towards the signs of life, and a new sound gradually floated in from the distance. You concentrated on the high-pitched jingling tune. Was it? It had to be. It was the musical call of an ice cream truck. Nobody could see it yet, despite there being watchers on all sides, but the song got louder. Baxter followed it persistently, his fingers tightening their grip on the wheel. That jingle was the Pied Piper, and everyone was drawn in by it. The car came up to a crossroads and stopped. That instant, a clamor filled the car. Everyone, even the ever-relaxed Baxter, cheered or gasped in sync. An ice cream truck drove right by in front of your very eyes. It was technically white, but covered with so many brightly colored pictures the original paint was more of an accent. Stickers with warnings such as, "Go slow" and "Watch for children" stood out in red, and recognizable characters in edible versions were in a grid, labeling them as A1 or C3 for convenient ordering. It was like a moving treasure chest of frozen goodness, and the temptation was too strong for some. Still in the middle of the intersection, Cove's door popped open and his seatbelt zipped up against the cushion with nothing left to protect. Cove was gone! Cove! I'm going after my boy. As soon as humanly possible, you joined Cove in the wide world. Shoes to pavement, you rushed to the ice cream. You and Cove jogged after the truck, leading the pack. Terry cheered and waved, trying to catch the driver's attention. Miranda skipped behind her, moving her arms in wide motions. The truck lurched to a stop. You'd done it! So weird being in another town with, like, different background. All four of you rushed up to the side with the service window. You excitedly crowded around the stuck-on menu. You could feel the anticipation of a kid on their birthday, except it was somehow everybody's birthday at the same time.
Finally!
There's so many things!
Yeah.
I wasn't expecting so many options. Where's the actual ice cream?
Baxter arrived while Terry pointed out a corner of the menu with more ice cream choices than popsicles. While you'd flailed down the middle of the road, he had responsibly parked the car on the opposite side at the opposite end of the nearly empty street. Good on you, sir. Up close, you could see the images were faded. They weren't as vibrant as they should have been, and chips of paint were flaking off. If anything, the wear and tear increased the charm. It was real, and it was just what you'd imagined. You were finally experiencing a quintessential summer ritual. I've never actually got ice cream from an ice cream truck either. Look at it in all its glory. The order window lifted and the driver gave a hearty greeting. Good evening.
Good evening to you.
Hi.
Hey!
Hello.
Sorry.
Hi. Thanks for stopping for us. Sorry for chasing you.
No, thank you for stopping by. Can I get you something?
Absolutely.
He beamed with victory, a cat who got his cream. Ice cream. Then he gave his first check over the options and shrugged.
However, we do require a moment.
Of course, no problem. Take your time. That started the great ice cream discussion. Ice cream was serious business and took consideration. Miranda was firmly in the camp of actual ice cream options, making the valid point that you'd come for ice cream. Terry wasn't convinced. Neither was Cove. Getting ice cream obviously didn't mean you actually had to get ice cream. Anything from the truck counted. The debate ended with no agreed on winner. Everyone just got what they wanted.
Hi again. I'd like a coconut popsicle.
Sure, let me get that for you. She reached over into a freezer and pulled out the first of the treats. She handed it off to Cove and he passed her some cash.
I'll have one of those snow cones.
And can I have a chocolate-dipped ice cream cone, please? The D4?
They both received their treats, paid, and stepped away to clear the way. You decided to order. Oh boy. So many popsicles. Oh, I could go for my classic ice cream sandwich. An ice cream taco? What the heck is an ice cream taco? Imagine getting nothing after all that. Alright, I'm gonna go for my ice cream sandwich. I love my ice cream sandwich! Yes, I like my ice cream sandwich!
You've always liked that kind of thing.
Baxter, meanwhile, had yet to finish staring at the menu. With intense scrutiny, his eyes went over the rows of advertised frosty desserts long after everyone else already had theirs. It was getting awkward, especially for the lady in the truck who would be stuck there until he finally got around to ordering something. Terry tried to break the ice, or ice cream, and cracked a joke.
Get the ice cream sundae cup.
The ice cream is totally white and the chocolate sauce looks almost black. Nice. She found that to be a side splitter, but it didn't even make a dent in Baxter's reverie. The world around him was lost to the palace of his mind.
Baxter?
Still no reaction. A new strategy was needed. Terry stuck a hand in right front of his face, cutting him off from the pictures, taking all his attention. He blinked, and the spell of those tantalizing treats was broken.
I'm sorry.
Is something the matter?
That's what we wanted to ask you. You've been quiet for a while.
Yes. I have been.
Baxter put a hand to his chin and popped his hip out to one side. The focus that had been so centered on the truck was now set upon the rest of you. With that pose and his already eccentric style, Baxter looked like a side character in a cartoony mystery game. One who was definitely not the criminal, but still needed to be cross-examined for important details.
My problem is this. I'm unsure if I should get a dessert that's to my usual taste. If I do, I'd be certain to enjoy what comes from the ice cream truck. That would be nice. But, on the other hand, this may happen only once. Perhaps it'd be more rewarding to get something new. An option that would be challenging to find in a common store. Which will add more to the experience? Indulgence or novelty? I want to make the right choice.
If I was like doing Baxter's route, I think I would totally do this, but I'd feel awkward about sharing my dessert with another guy. When I've only done that with COVE, I'd feel like really awkward about doing it, like So I'll go for this one. You could get more than one treat. They're a few dollars, and it seems like you could afford that.
It's settled.
Yes, thank you. I believe I'll do just that.
Fun!
Yay!
Success! Indeed. But now you're going to have to bear with me.
He said so teasingly. It was all self-directed.
I promise it is not what you think. I'm being entirely honest. I'm going to get my preferred treat of this type to eat. At least for one of them. Okay. Why would we have a problem with that?
Shut up! I mean, it is black and white. I choose to believe he chose it because it's black and white and not because it's my favorite ice cream, okay?
That is because my favorite is an ice cream sandwich.
COVE, Terry, and Miranda exploded into laughter.
That's what I should have suggested, not the sundae.
So great.
It's the perfect black and white selection for Baxter.
Yep. Baxter ran his hand across his bangs, his smile sweeping into a grin at the same time. It was obvious he knew exactly what he was doing. Far from being bothered by your laughter, it seemed like that was what he was aiming for all along.
You know,
I cannot deny that I originally tried them because of the colors. It had been picked out for me because they assumed I'd appreciate having a black and white dessert, which I did. But they are the tastiest type of simple ice cream treat to me. It's simply a coincidence. Or perhaps it was meant to be. If you insist, monsieur. I believe you. Go get your sandwich.
Baxter approached the truck determinedly and leaned against the counter. He spoke briefly to the patient ice cream lady, then money was exchanged. In return, he got his prizes. Coveted ice cream truck treats were finally in his hands. Baxter already explained his first choice, the one he knew he'd like, but the other option, the one he could only get from an ice cream truck, was a mystery. He held it up for the curious onlookers. In his grip was a damp wrapper that boldly stated what laid underneath. A creamy popsicle made to look like a cute girl with bubblegum pieces in the eyes. She was a character from an ever-popular cartoon show. A sweet thing colored mostly by blues and yellows and overall wildly out of place for a man like Baxter Ward to possess. Baxter was living on the edge that evening. COVE snorted a laugh. Terry applauded.
Oh yeah, you can get that in a grocery store.
Yep.
Or at a restaurant, and it'd be really hard to make yourself.
You've done good, Baxter.
Entirely straightforward, Baxter made his intentions known.
This will be the first and last time I consume a small girl's face. Ideally.
After one more thanks to your crowd, the ice cream sales lady shut the side window. Then the truck slowly began to move. Your friend shouted and waved and gave grand farewells, wishing her well on her journey, bringing treats to young and old. She beat the horn a couple times in a cheer of her own. The truck eventually disappeared beneath the skyline, and you, along with the others, ambled across and up the road towards Baxter's car with treats in hand. Miranda and Terry giggled about something you couldn't quite catch, but it became apparent the minute they exchanged cones and took a lick each. Actually, using the word lick might have been generous.
Terry!
A peek at Miranda's half-eaten ice cream and the vanilla and chocolate smeared all over Terry's mouth said all that needed to be said about the situation. Terry pitched forward, clutching her head, the cone nearly hurtling to the ground as she pressed into her temples with both hands.
Ooh. Ha! Karmic justice.
Brain freeze, huh?
How tragic. She was so young. Cove looked at the sky and shrugged.
Oh well.
You elbowed him in the ribs, and he went staggering off, clutching the most grievous wound. Then Cove pinched the edge of his popsicle stick, waving it like an accusatory finger in Terry's direction before taking a bite off the top. The regret was immediate on his face the minute he crunched down on it. He stiffened into a Covesicle. Luckily, both Cove and Terry made full recoveries after a minute. Cove bumped his shoulder into yours. He was careful he didn't send you flying. Thank you.
Hey.
Hi? He was the one who approached you, yet his eyes didn't meet yours. Instead, they were sharply focused on the dessert clasped in your hand. Yes? Can I help you? His blue eyes finally met yours in a single fluid motion. The look was pleading. Cove was never good at hiding what he wanted. Then again, he never really made a point of trying to be. His mouth didn't even need to voice the intention, the desperation, but it still did.
Can I try some of yours?
Of course. Can I try yours? A coconut popsicle sounds interesting. You can have some of mine. I want to try yours too. Cove wordlessly exchanged his treat for yours. It tasted exactly as you expected it to be. Something between fruity and milky. But not cow's milk exactly, more like coconut milk. I'm glad I didn't share my dessert with Baxter and instead shared it with Cove. The others continued chatting as you clocked that there was a notably absent figure from the party. It was your fifth and newest addition to the group, who also happened to be the one who drove you guys here and made the plan in the first place, Baxter. Your eyes followed the retreating backs of Miranda and Terry, then to Cove, who already started to outpace you the minute you relaxed. You attempted to see if Baxter had gone even further ahead. There were no signs of that monochromatic color scheme you'd gotten so good at spotting. A low chuckle from behind you gave away the ghost. His tone was chill as always, but it was even more fitting considering the theme of the moment, frozen delights.
Oh?
I wonder what it is that you're searching for, Molly.
You felt bad, not noticing that he'd been quiet since you gave your well wishes and sent the truck off on its way. You imagined he would have fit himself into the conversation without much issue, but he hadn't. Instead, he hung out at the very end of the crowd, inspecting his dessert with the gravity of a man who had been face to face with the source of a deep-rooted fear only hours ago. I feel awful. He is trying so hard to be like, hey, you want to hang out? Hey, you want me to like come pick you up? You want me to like eat your dessert? You want to like exchange spit on ice cream? And I'm like, I'm trying really hard, okay? It is not fair that you can distract me so easily. Goodbye. It was possible he wanted that space he took for himself.
Hey!
Baxter! Come on, don't be a stranger. Terry waved, her snow cone on high as she called out to the man of the hour. He was still leisurely following at a distance. Terry pointed her partially melted snow cone towards Baxter as soon as he came close enough. I wanted to try yours too. Mine's a little slushy now, but that's half the appeal. See, Terry can do what I cannot, so go ahead, Terry. He gave his ice cream sandwich to Terry, taking the paper cone in exchange. I just realized it'd be really dumb to offer him my ice cream because we both have ice cream sandwiches. I kind of want to know how that's gonna go now. Oh my goodness. I mean, I'll do that when I do his route. But he's just gonna give me the weirdest look like, we have the same thing, girl. What are you talking about?
And for reference, what is the other half?
Turns your tongue blue.
Really? Didn't you get a cherry?
Yup. Cove shook his head, but didn't have it in him to get involved with that conversation. After they each got a chance to try the other's desserts, Baxter and Terry swapped again. Then Baxter leaned against his car hood while everyone else happily situated themselves around the area. Randy and Terry took seats on the sidewalk curb, apparently heatedly debating the possibility of blue cherry being a real flavor. Terry had a fair argument considering raspberries weren't blue, and yet blue raspberry did exist for some reason. Cove hovered nearby, crouching himself on the summer-warmed asphalt. He stretched and strained, trying to lick a stream of melted coconut popsicle running down his arm. You remember you can't lick your elbow, right? You never could. Ignoring your well-intentioned warning, he pressed on. His face squished against his forearm, tongue angling to try anyway.
I can do it. It's personal now.
The limits of the human body were a pain, but it was still pretty funny to watch him try to fight against it. With the absence of the ice cream truck's music and the thrill that came with that, the street seemed entirely different. Houses quietly lined the street, and you now heard the rush of the wind. Branches swayed overhead in the breeze, and leaves rustled. It didn't carry the comforting smell of sea salt.
So?
Here we are.
Terry heartily licked the side of her snow cone. She leaned on her fist, the arm propped up on a raised knee. Her tongue was extremely blue now.
Far away from where we belong and who knows where, camped out in front of some random suburban person's house.
Miranda tilted her head back to look up at the mailbox mounted to the concrete. Rocking to one side, she craned her head to get a read of what number was on the side of it.
Thanks.
Thank you to the fine people of 231. Whatever this street is.
Thanks.
They didn't do anything for us. Thanks, ice cream truck lady.
Right. And thanks for driving us all the way out here, Bax. Can I call you Bax? Before he could answer, Terry sucked in a bit of air and waved it off.
Nah.
That's not right. I'll work on it.
Baxter chuckled, taking another bite of his sandwich.
There is no need to thank me. It was exactly what I had wanted to do.
It was totally worth it.
Yeah,
Oh yeah.
For sure.
Definitely.
absolutely.
The sky grew pinker and yellower, and you knew the day was soon going to come to a close. Somehow it felt wrong. It had gone too fast to be over. Though summer never seemed long enough those days. As you were about to voice that thought, you heard the dim sound of something gurgling. That immediately replaced the words that came out. Hey, did you guys hear that?
I did!
Yeah, what was it?
Neither of the boys replied to the question except for shakes of the head and shrugs in the negative. There was no time for a follow-up question because the answer came in the form of a whoosh. Water bubbled and shot up in graceful arcs all around. Droplets splattered onto paved driveways and were coming towards the sidewalk next.
Sprinklers!
Randy made a break for it, dashing into the street with the speed of an Olympian sprinter.
Randy, wait up!
Terry leapt onto her feet. Her shoes hit the concrete with wet slaps while Baxter wordlessly searched for cover himself from the surprise spray, meandering away without any urgency. He responded with remarkable poise about the whole thing, unbothered by the fact he'd gotten wet today after all. Baxter even had time to finish the last bit of his desserts. I'll take it in stride. Sure, you'd gotten a little wet, but water was water, and you were hardly a stranger to it. You used to run through the sprinklers as a kid. It would dry pretty quick. But Cove didn't even so much as flinch. He only stood to his full height with his back to the car, a popsicle stick prodding out of his mouth. He glanced over at the others and grinned as he withdrew the stick clean.
Oh?
How about this water-based activity?
Nice.
Most of us are still in swimsuits.
Exciting.
Oh, well isn't that an interesting proposition?
The challenge had been issued, and Baxter threw down the gauntlet. Cove's eyes popped open with shock, but he didn't allow the surprise to keep him from moving. He darted off to the lawns. As Baxter came sprinting from behind, it looked more like Cove was running away from him rather than into the sprinklers.
My snow cone!
Terry complained, sticking the paper cone higher in the air as she stayed well and good away from the sprinkler spray.
No.
It'll melt! Terry had a wetsuit on, but that wasn't going to protect her snow cone by a long shot.
Let's do it.
Aw, come on, Terry. Live a little.
In spite of the fact that Miranda had led the charge for cover, she was easily convinced to jump into the fray. Skipping to the sidewalk with her ice cream in tow, she waved the two boys down to stop and wait for her. Terry sidled up to your side, clutching her, honestly, already melted dessert. Her eyes kept going between her much-beloved treat and the sparkling sprinklers, but she seemed to have chosen to preserve the sanctity of the snow cone instead. Here I come! Terry gave you a thumbs up as you abandoned your shoes and went frolicking through the sprinklers with reckless abandon. The temperature of the water was bracing. Odds had been good that it'd be cold, but that was almost on the next level. Did the suburbs put ice in their pipes? Still, you weren't about to regret the decision now. You can grab someone's hand. Whoa! Yep. You didn't need to tell Cove for him to know that you were coming. As soon as you managed to close the distance, Cove met your outstretched hands with his. Would you mind if I joined you? Cove's fingers closed around yours gently. His sea green hair was plastered to his cheeks. He was already soaked, but his answer warmed your freezing heart immediately.
No way.
You're a brave man to go running into water with your glasses on, by the way. The two of you scampered through the sprinkles, intertwined. Scampering through the sprinklers. You were all fancy-footed and careful until suddenly you heard Randy cry out in surprise. She was covering her mouth and held what remained of her crumbling sugar cone. The ice cream had fallen, abandoned to the grass. It was one thing to have damp ice cream, but it was another if it fell to the ground altogether. Everyone stopped, except for the sprinklers on their back-and-forth paths, and Terry Brooke. Terry breached the wall of water, sliding across the grass until she could get a leg up. On one knee, she lifted her snow cone in offering as if it were the finest bouquet of roses. Randy, will you do me the great honor?
Oh!
Miranda lit up brighter than any star, giggling as she wiped the last streaks of ice cream from her fingers. She took the offered snow cone, dark hair falling forward as she smiled softly at Terry. Poor Baxter is such a fifth wheel. We're all flirting and stuff. Terry bounced up from the ground, dusting off what grass had adhered itself to her legs.
You know, it was just ice cream. I would have survived.
Terry was aghast, her hand at her clavicle before she reached out for the snow cone.
All right.
I'm taking it back then.
Nope, you already gave it to me.
Cove's eyes met yours as you turned in the direction of the boys, and he smiled, shrugging as if to say that he didn't know what to do either. The two were already invested in a new game of keep away until Cove stole it right out of their hands, only to be immediately dogpiled by both. He turned to search for Baxter to see if he was going to join the fray, but he was distracted. His attention was squarely fixed on Miranda and Terry, watching as they argued about whose snow cone it was and if Cove really had a stake in the matter.
I see.
He hummed, stroking his chin with consideration before brown eyes met yours, and the thoughtful expression gave way to a lax smile. He chuckled, gesturing to them as he gave you a look to ask if this was typical, in answer to which you readily provided a big thumbs up.
Hey, nice job.
I'm on it.
For Randy, anything.
Terry beamed in reply, elbowing Cove in the ribs before the sudden hiss of another sprinkler rising from its earthy tomb reminded her of where they were. Randy shotgunned the rest of Terry's snow cone. A champion was born. Terry responded by crushing the paper cone against her forehead, to Miranda's delight, though she did get some of the syrup in her eye. And it wasn't long before that interlude was forgotten. Dashing and leaping resumed in earnest. But all good things must come to an end. Eventually, the sprinklers retreated into the ground, and all that remained of the celebration was 5 dripping young adults that don't even live here.
Boo! I was just getting started. It should have gone longer.
Honestly, I think it went on really long for being a bunch of sprinklers.
The sun was situated almost perfectly halfway below the horizon. It was probably about time to call it quits for the day. Actually, you were really sure to call it when another breeze swept by and caught on the now soaked and very cold fabric of your clothes. Shivering in place, you watched as Terry and Miranda immediately found each other again, the girls clinging desperately to each other for warmth. Cove tugged on the hem of his shirt, pinching it away from his body before allowing it to fall back with a wet slap.
I should have taken this off before I went in.
He promptly rectified that and took off his shirt, cheeks pinking with embarrassment when the girls took a break from being cold to whistle. Like they didn't see him without the shirt on earlier.
Guys, I wasn't wearing this at the beach. It's not different now.
Cove wrung the water out of it before swinging the shirt over his shoulder instead of pulling it on again.
And before anybody says anything, it's gonna be colder wearing that than not wearing it.
True. The damage to your shirt was as bad for you as it was for him. I mean, it is gonna be freezing, and then it's just gonna be a wet t-shirt. It's just my swimsuit. It was just my swimsuit. It'd be more comfortable carrying it than wearing it at that point. Sigh.
I do regret that we did not bring our towels.
He ambled into the roadway to retrieve his abandoned shoes and socks. Baxter then returned to his car's side, as did the entire gang. To the side, Terry and Miranda remained linked. Their knees were practically knocking into each other. You couldn't pry them apart with a crowbar if you tried. That had to be effective. Randy, Terry, let me in. I'm cold. Baxter, want some help for me? Cove, come over here. I really didn't think this through. Baxter then gave the group a once-over. Miranda and Terry were still chattering their teeth, and Cove, in spite of claims to the contrary, wasn't doing too hot either. Oh.
It would be no trouble if we were to return now. I truly don't mind if the car gets wet.
Randy and Terry vehemently and loudly disagreed with the suggestion. It's a rental! They'll probably charge you if we track all this water in.
You know.
Not exactly.
We can at least wait until we're not dripping everywhere anymore, right? Even if we're not all the way dry?
He glanced at the car, then to the others. Baxter already started reaching for the door handle when they disagreed. He allowed his hand to fall to his side.
I suppose it would be tragic to ruin leather upholstery. Thank you. It is kind of you to be so considerate.
In that case...
I am certain my acquaintance will appreciate it.
Ah, so you're renting it from a friend, borrowing it. Who's your acquaintance? Terry mouthed acquaintance to Miranda, then over to you, only to be met with equally confused shrugs from you both. I got nothing. Cove shook his head until water started flying from his hair. It splattered against the side of the car, already wet from the sprinklers earlier. Hey!
Cove?
If it's fine with Baxter, then we can stay a while longer. Absolutely.
Staying longer didn't mean staying still, though. You and the others walked down the sidewalk, sandals and shoes squelching with the residual wetness as you made your way throughout the neighborhood. The neighborhood, but not your neighborhood.
So...
It's weird that it doesn't smell like the ocean.
Cove's nose crinkled as your head perked up. He smiled as if to confirm you two had been on the same page the minute he even mentioned it.
Oh, yes.
I find the scent of lawn clippings rather relaxing, personally. Huh. Okay.
Your band of five continued to meander past the street sign, and Terry narrowly managed to avoid getting her shoe stuck in a gap in the concrete. You know something?
I know a lot of some things.
Miranda offered cheekily, grinning from ear to ear as she looked in your direction. Good work, Randy, but I don't know how we got from the beach to here. The very important quest for ice cream, remember? She swatted Baxter in the side with her free arm. He rubbed at the place, and you wondered if it actually hurt him or if that was for the dramatics.
Hey!
You can add sprinkler running to your list of water-based summer activities. And since we're talking about your past water exploits, Cove already tensed up before Terry even asked her question. How'd you end up skinny dipping anyways? Cove dropped his face in his hands, shaking in disbelief, while Miranda snorted a quiet, "Oh my gosh." It was tempting to point out that Cove was the one who brought up water-based activities to get Baxter's sprinkler running in the first place, but you resisted the urge. Impressive segue, Terry.
What?
You guys aren't curious? I'm just asking what we were all thinking. The people want to know. I'm the people. Baxter gave a subtle non-committal shrug.
It is not nearly as intriguing as you might imagine.
Honestly.
I believe it was about 3 years ago. I was vacationing at a lake cabin and was dared to by those in my company.
A dare?
A tale as old as time. I believe it was around midnight and the water was freezing, but it did make for a memorable trip. As I said, it isn't a particularly remarkable story.
When you heard the sparse details, it was easy to believe. That seemed exactly like the kind of thing that Baxter would do. He may be accommodating, but the minute that Cove challenged him to something, it was on.
Now.
More remarkable was today's adventure, I wager. It is not every day that I am able to go running through the sprinklers or chase an ice cream truck across the city. Much less with such delightful company.
Oh, you. Terry let one hand dangle daintily. Her opposite one was covering her mouth as she acted like one of the many old ladies you could find around Sunset Bird. Baxter didn't reply, gaze now fixated on the sidewalk in front of him as you all continued ahead. One square of concrete after another.
No, truly. It reminded me I am not nearly as old as I might sound.
He grazed the back of his neck with his hand, holding it there. Then he stared up at the sky, but it was clear he wasn't staring at the clouds. He was searching for something past it that wasn't there anymore.
Yet the last time I've done anything of this nature was when I was a child, running around with my old friends and causing havoc to our poor, unsuspecting town.
I'm glad you suggested it. Baxter hummed comfortably, allowing the conversation to lapse into silence. Oh, and it got real dark real fast. The twilight stroll continued until the sky turned dark and street lamps flickered on. Even as night fell, you thought there might still be a chance to cling to the thread of this day. Everyone was sufficiently dried enough anyway to not consider yourselves liabilities. When the vehicle came into view, Cove mumbled,
Staying outside in swimsuits until it's nighttime and getting ice cream. It really is like we're kids again.
Not just like being kids, but kids on a vacation. Well, Baxter is on a vacation, but it's like someone's birthday or the 4th of July.
Fireworks! Baxter dropped his keys, startled when Terry suddenly screamed.
Sorry.
He waved off the apology, kneeling down to pick them up. That was the second time his attempts to open the car had been interrupted. Perhaps the third time would be the charm.
What was that about?
We can't go home yet! I just remembered there were fireworks today! Cove and Miranda looked at one another before they turned their scrutiny onto Terry.
Huh?
For what?
I think it's to celebrate an opening or something. We probably can't get into the real event, but we can see it with our eyes for free. She made 2 circles with her hands, holding them up to her aforementioned eyes as she advanced closer to Cove, who lightly pushed her back with a hand. They can't stop the public out from seeing explosions in the sky.
Seriously?
Really? Another last-minute rush trip?
Cove sighed, shaking his head in disapproval. Aw, come on, Cove. Don't be a wet blanket. Terry wrote him off, likely aware that Cove could not help being wet, turning to face you, Miranda, and Baxter, the 3 that stood in the way of her night continuing for an hour or 2 more.
So?
What about you, Molly? Randy? Baxter? Want to see some fireworks? Terry continued on without waiting for an answer. Isn't today all about summer experiences? What's more summer than fireworks? It's fireworks, we gotta go.
I guess they are fireworks. Alright, whatever. What's one more scene change?
On it.
Breaking the 4th wall there. Yosh! I knew this was a good idea! In turn, 4 sets of eyes looked to Baxter. As the driver, his answer made or broke the plan. He chuckled softly.
In for a penny, in for a pound. I'll go.
Honestly.
Genuinely, there's nothing better to occupy my time tonight. We better hurry or we might miss it.
Cove rolled his eyes but laughed. There was no time to lose. The fireworks were sure to start soon. If you didn't want to miss any part of it, that meant you needed to book it now. The gang hurried into the car and were slowly blessed with warmth after Baxter turned on the heater and it began to kick in. Terry wriggled in her seat, proudly announcing that she had the additional gift of seat warmers to the envy of everyone else in the car. However, the goal wasn't to sit there, enjoying modern accommodations. It was to get back out of the car as quickly as possible. It took a while to get out of the winding streets of the neighborhood, but eventually Baxter reached the freeway and zipped straight to the city. For the second time that day, you were met with the silhouettes of skyscrapers in the near distance, but now they were illuminated by explosive bursts of greens and purples.
It's starting!
Oh no, are we going to miss it?
Baxter's hand rested on the gear shift, digits curling against the handle before he switched into the right lane to exit off the freeway.
Wait, the GPS said... No, they're somewhere outside of the city that I intended to visit. I believe we can stop by there and catch the show. It's an unblocked viewing area.
Oh, yeah.
Baxter, you are brilliant!
Woo!
Pedal to the metal! Unless you're already speeding, then don't go any faster.
Cove and you turned towards Miranda, but she was hardly paying attention, her hands covering her cheeks as she cheered Baxter on while simultaneously advocating for traffic safety. Baxter tightened his grip on the wheel, changing a few more lanes before he exited and threaded through another tangle of local streets. Eventually, the car rumbled to a stop as a waterside path appeared in the dark. Woo! Pretty. Very pretty. Everyone piled out one after the other, sprinting from the parking lot. Cove, Miranda, and Terry scrambled up the edge of the path at the water's edge. Baxter stayed in the middle between the start and the end, folding his arms as he hovered behind the crew. His eyes were less fixated on the sights unfolding before you than they were focused on the other three. High in the sky and far away, it was the perfect way to watch fireworks. Less crowded than it would have been in the city, and quieter than it would have been there too. It was kind of funny. You and your group lived in or around the city almost all your lives, and it was Baxter who found this place for you to enjoy. Tourists did tend to put in the effort to find scenic spots. People who could theoretically see something every day didn't always take the opportunities around them.
Ooh.
Randy pointed out a golden firework and beamed.
Woo!
Oh, that's so cool!
Terry held up a hand for a high five and Miranda obliged her. Terry whooped and shot you a smile.
Hey.
What color do you think the next one will be?
Without giving Baxter a glance, Cove answered immediately.
Green.
It was orange. Baxter chuckled, but wasn't interested in calling Cove out for being wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Is that your favorite color? Green.
That's...
It's... one of them. I think that's nice. It matches you. And is yours black? That's one of them.
Cove smirked just a little and left the conversation there. I'm like apparently already next to Baxter because I can stay there. My girl's like just slowly sidling up and I'm like, I gotta get the hook out and bring you over. Don't lose track, girl. Keep your eyes on the prize. He was glad to be spending time with you and tilted his head at a spectacular multicolored firework above.
I think that's been my favorite so far.
He shot you another look and nodded, wanting you to move up closer. In front of him, you could see the night's lights reflected on the water. Boop. You rested against his side and let yourself relax. He felt solid and sturdy beside you. It was comfortable. You took a moment to watch him and the fireworks reflected in his eyes. Cove grinned like a kid. Cove's gaze drifted from the show of dazzling lights straight at you, and he sighed dreamily. You didn't know when you'd last seen him so blissful. One explosion of color followed another, and the exuberance of your friends couldn't be measured. You'd seen fireworks before. They weren't anything new. But all those times you'd attended events before, it wasn't anything close to this. You'd nearly missed it, and it wasn't even a show, really, for you to see. That's what made it special. The effort it took for you to get here, the place you were watching from, and the people that you were watching with. The finale of the fireworks took center stage. Dozens scattered across the sky, and the sparks of them descended into the sea below. It was as if they were impossibly far away, distant stars, and yet also close enough to reach out and touch them. In the back of your mind, you knew that there would likely never be another day exactly like that one. When it was over, it'd be over forever. And that made it a precious experience. You vowed to hold on to the memories, feelings, and this one single moment for as long as you possibly could. Whew, wow, what a day. What a full day. That was great. I'm so curious, like, what changes about the hangout thing if Baxter isn't there? Because I'm like, do you still go for ice cream, or is that like a Baxter-only thing? Regardless, we managed to not get entirely distracted and hung out with our boy, and we had our cheek caressed, so I'm going to count that as a big win for today.